Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 8th of March, comes to you from London. And we start, as always, by looking at currencies, then stock markets, commodities, and we'll take a look last of all at some US tech stocks. And we start with the dollar index moving higher still, so we are seeing this recovery continuing, bullish above all three charts. So long term, medium term, and short term. Remember, this is bullish. And if we look at the euro, we're just turning bearish there. So that's converse to the dollar as we would expect. So we're just seeing the euro coming back. This 105 level is looking pretty critical. This is where we touched last week. The big question will be, can we hold that? Looking at the Japanese yen, we're seeing the dollar strength just starting to return here, just struggling to get back above the cloud. But at the moment, it looks like it will, and we've got these upside targets of around 3%. So dollar strength is still very much the story there. Sterling down at the moment, 121.63. We're just falling below the lows we saw yesterday, so that's fairly bad for sterling. It's budget day here in the UK, spring budget, so it'll be interesting to see whether that has any positive or negative effects on sterling today. But the reality is we are in a downtrend on all three charts, and we're still pretty bearish on sterling. Looking at the euro sterling rate, we're seeing weakness continue there as well, 115. So that's quite key too. And looking at the sterling Swiss rate, 123.28, so we're seeing a fall away there too. Against the Australian dollar, sterling is actually holding its own a little bit here, so just interesting to see that. But again, we're bearish below the cloud on all three charts. Last night, the S&P 500 US stocks just pulled back a little bit. We saw prices just starting to wander through the cloud, but we are still above the cloud with a lagging line. And we've got these upside targets of around 4% upside. So US markets still look strong despite everyone worrying that it can't go any higher. And we're seeing the Nasdaq again slowing down, just flat the last week really. So we just haven't seen the run there. And the Dow also just coming off a bit in the last few days. So but still bullish above the cloud on all three time frames. The shortage of short-term targets there. Looking at the Russell 2000, this has deteriorated a bit, so the broader market is just falling away. So that's quite interesting. Futures down very slightly this morning, so we may see the market open just slightly lower. FTSE still above the cloud, down very slightly this morning, but we're above the cloud on the FTSE. FTSE 250 we're seeing is still above the cloud and bullish, and we've got targets of 1% upside activated and 5% upside if we make new highs. We need to activate that. The DAX also bullish above the cloud on all three charts. Nikkei was down about 0.5% overnight, but still bullish on all three charts. Hang Seng was up slightly, but reality is we're just below the cloud on this short-term chart. We're just coming through in the long-term position, so Hong Kong's starting to look a bit better, but just taking its time. Shanghai wandering out of the cloud here on the medium-term chart, so that's quite key as well. So we're interesting that we see that too. Then if we look at the Indian stock market, we see here bullish above the cloud, above all three charts there. The Australian index is also bullish above the cloud, just coming back above the cloud on the short term. Lots of upside targets for the Aussie market, so it does look like the Australian market will start to move higher just based on the sheer number of targets there. Lots of buying thrusts. Brent just struggling still at this $55 mark. We're just coming back below the cloud. A really unusual start to the year. Q1 normally very strong in Brent, just struggling to do anything there. And WTI much the same. So crude oil just has had a really unusual start to the year where it's normally strong. It's just been quite weak. US nat gas continuing to get back towards this $3 mark, and it's bullish short term, but the medium term chart is still bearish. Copper bearish short term. We've got downside of 3.5%. Just looking at some of the other commodities here, heating oil is above the cloud, very similar to the crude charts. Coffee bearish in the short term with downside targets of 2%, and that medium term chart is bearish too. And on the cocoa future, we're seeing much the same thing there, bearish as well. Cotton, not very liquid as we can see, but is bullish above all three charts. Wheat, um, bullish in the short and medium term, but the long-term picture is still pretty bearish. Soybeans, we're just below the cloud there on the short term with a downside of 2%. And corn also just looking a little bit weak in the short term. So soft's not looking great at the moment overall. Interestingly, it's looking at gold now, just really continuing to fall in that short-term chart. It has negated this upside target, which we had into the 280s. Gold last year, it was quite interesting. We pulled back $84 last year for in the middle of around this time. So we shouldn't be surprised to see this pullback. It then ran higher into the year. We have moved above the cloud in the medium term. We're coming back into the cloud, so we're just testing these support levels, but it's waiting for a move around through this short-term downtrend. And silver, much the same picture there. Downside target on silver of 5%. On gold, notice we don't have any short-term downside targets on the 60-minute chart. The German Bund, just heading lower here at the moment, and that's a reflection of yields increasing, and we're seeing here on the US Treasury 10-year 2.54%, so just kicking higher here after quite a while in the doldrums, just kicking higher. It'll be very interesting to see if we take out this level, but that's pricing in a move in upwards in US interest rates. Apple stock looking still very strong in the medium term and short term, and the long term looking great all round really. Google above the cloud all round still. Amazon just testing the cloud here on the short term chart, and Facebook still maintaining its upward trend here above the cloud on all three charts. 2.5% upside. Expect to see Facebook into those 140s soon. And then Microsoft, we are below on the short-term chart, but the long-term and medium-term picture still looks good. And Nvidia, am I happy I sold? Well, we just have to wait and see. And the 5 new stocks that I bought, which I covered yesterday, have got off to a mixed start, but that's what happens, and I've just got to wait and see which one starts to merge. The picture will become clearer. It's quite fun to own them. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.